All right, we are back in session again with our budget committee. We left off after the report for three major capital projects. And Councillor Daigle, I think you had some comments that you wanted to make on that.
Thank you, Your Honor, Worship. My worry is the 6.8 million that we're looking at here for the William Street pumping station. We bought a system not that long ago, promising that it would do at least 200 more homes or more. As I recall, the area in Nairn all along Petty Street and that area that is being serviced now in Elsa Craig was included in it. And all of a sudden we need $6,800,000 more to make that work. Somebody's made an error somewhere because those homes never went in, and since that project's been done. So the property's sitting there, or yeah, the equipment's sitting there. I can see maybe a pump wearing out in years, but the line never being big enough to handle those extra homes. That's an engineering error, not that these people shouldn't have to pay for.
Okay, thank you. Carolyn.
One thing that we have to mention, I believe, is that the substantial amount of infiltration that's occurring in Elsa Craig from stormwater. There was a time, I understand, that downspouts from people's homes and businesses, as well as some pumps, were allowed to enter the system. Plus there's probably other examples as well. That is substantial and is definitely hurting us when it comes to stormwater and wastewater in Elsa Craig, and it's causing some of the problems. I'm not saying entirely. I can't argue with you. I know that it has been suggested that we could go a lot further with that pumping station at one time, but I do think the infiltration is a big part of the problem. Also, in talking with our engineers more recently, the urgency of the pumping station may not be as urgent as we once thought or originally talked about. So there might be capacity available for a good portion of the developments that are on stream right now. But we do know if we don't fix the infiltration, we're going to have a problem before long. And we know that with the amount of development coming on stream, even with that dealt with, we're going to be looking at needing to upgrade it. So there's a combination of a couple of things. Does it have to be done in 24? Likely not, but we should start working on infiltration right away. And certainly it's my recommendation that anytime we do it, we look for grant monies to do the works.
Councillor Daigle.
I'm in full agreement. I would like to see the 6,800 moved out to our 2020, what's showing in the 2024 column here, or as not having to happen this year. But I'd like to see a place marker put in its place, say for 100,000 or 200,000 to do the infiltration study testing and get that under control.
Okay. Thank you. Jaden.
Yeah, through your worship, the CAO had some good comments there and addressed most of the councillors' comments. But I was just going to note, yeah, we're not at capacity right now with that pumping station. It does have capacity for approximately 150, maybe to 200 homes. It's just with the development that is coming online, with the Asable Bluffs development draft plan being approved, that's 162 single family homes and some townhomes as well. So it's not all being built out immediately, of course, but with that and with some other developments coming online, we do have to make plans to upgrade this pumping station. But I just thought I'd clarify that we do have capacity right now, and we can last some time before having to upgrade.
Okay, I will say I like what Councillor Daigle's saying. Though that isn't happening this year, but let's start that process of getting some of this rainwater out of that system. And as a taxpayer, I mean, if I have my eave troughs in there and I can save a bunch of money, save all of us a bunch of money, myself included, I'm gonna do that. And I think that's gonna be a process to get that to happen. And I do agree that we should start that as soon as possible. Carolyn.
I guess I do have one question for Council Hopper. We do have this grant opportunity that's coming up as we speak. It seems to, in my opinion, and I believe Jane's as well, it's our opinion that this grant fits very well with the pumping station project. So it would still be my recommendation we make application for it. It has a three-year time frame to complete the works. So if we were successful in the grant, we could put our component of the works into 25, or maybe delay the Queen Street project to 25. But my recommendation is that we'd still apply for that grant. We certainly can put the 6.8 into 2025 for right now. But if we were to receive the grant, we'd have to maybe rethink how we would do that. That's the only comment I'd have on that.
Well, I think if the grant comes through, that does make a difference, and we're going to, but still work on an infiltration.
Definitely. I wasn't saying let's take it away. You can always apply for grants and move a project up if we have the money. But I'd like to see something in here to take care of infiltration. We don't have anything bookmarked for it at present.
I think that's probably gonna have to come back as a report, isn't it, as to what kind of money that would take? I mean, a lot of it is going to be information sent out to the residents. First of all, ask them to voluntarily take all that, that's unhook all that stuff. If we can get a report, maybe that's the way to go about, get a report for the amount.
Yes, I think that's a great idea, and certainly it would involve some information, some educational material going to our residents, then asking them to comply voluntarily. Unfortunately, it likely will involve the need to mandate it at some point, which unfortunately is not going to make some people very happy, but we'll bring that back at a later date.
But I think Councillor Daigle, you would still like to see something put in a placeholder for this year for that.
If we don't do it, the project won't get started.
Councillor Keough.
Thank you, Mayor Rock. When we're preparing this information session for the ratepayers that have these eave troughs that are going into the system and sump pumps, is this something we should invite Aqua to, that they could furnish us with what a reading is on a wet spell versus if they didn't have these illegal hookups, just what the savings or what the difference would be.
Well, I agree. I think we'd want to for sure include all.
It would just, I think it would be more educational to the ratepayer when they were opening up that envelope. You could actually see whether it be a graph or whether it be, some type of comparison.
Okay.
That might sink home.
Okay. I have a question over here. No, Councillor Irwin.
Perhaps just a comment, and I appreciate the councillor's remarks because they're very similar to mine. And I think the carrot's better than the stick any day of the week. On the other hand, we probably would have to do house by house inspections at some point, perhaps. And I suspect the municipal bylaw and our new bylaw officer will have to go door to door at some point.
And that may be when we get down to that.
So, under those suggestions, would council like to see us put I don't going to argue sake, 75,000, 50,000 in there placeholder to get us started?
So I don't, it has to be a motion, I don't, just to put something in the budget. What were you thinking? You started at Councillor Daigle. What are you thinking for a number?
I was thinking 100,000.
Okay. Estelle?
I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused. 100,000 would be to do what exactly?
And the infiltration study.
Okay.
To
so-
mitigate the infiltration.
Okay, so then for clarity purposes, we would remove the William Street sewage pumping station from capital projects in 2024, delay all of it to 2025, but instead replace it with an infiltration study at 100,000. Thank you.
But we're still going to go after.
Yes, we'll still apply for the
absolutely.
grant. It is my plan to bring a report, if I can get it done tomorrow and get it to our clerk to get council's permission to apply for the grant, and Jade and I, together with our consultants, will be working on that grant application over the next couple of weeks.
Okay, is there any, I don't think, is there anything else on that project? All right, the desludging of the lagoons, I think that is the number one priority that you had said, Jaden? Correct?
That's correct.
And we did talk about some funding options. Comments, or what's council wish on that?
Shall we recap the funding option?
Yes, please do.
Shall we recap the funding options?
What I need to, if I could ask the treasurer to just let me know, how much do we have going into the sewer reserve other than what we have listed? That's something I didn't.
1.173 million.
Okay, so we could potentially do, right now we have 2.5 almost. So we could fund doing both cells ourselves. And also go out to the development community and ask them to upfront some monies to offset that. That's option number one. Option number two is just do it entirely ourselves, both cells. Or option number three, maybe just do one cell, and if we were able to get money from the development community, do the second cell. The worry I do about, as I mentioned before, if we just do one, the mobilization costs later on might be quite extensive. So my recommendation is to do both and try to realize the money for the second cell from the development community, but engage to try to do both this year.
Councilor Daigle. Oh, sorry, Estelle, did you want to speak to that first?
I would like to, please.
Okay,
There's also a third option of financing if we want to do so as not to deplete our sewer reserve for the major projects for the William Street next year.
Right.
Okay.
My apologies, that's a great idea as well.
Councilor Daigle.
I was just gonna say, I was in agreement with the CIO. If we're gonna do a cell, we might as well do both. If they're coming all the way to set up this equipment, it's gonna be about 50% of the cost to bring them back.
Yep. Councilor Irwin.
Through your worship, can you remind us if we did both lagoons, how many additional homes we would be able to bring online?
Through your worship, that it's approximately 250 to 300 new homes come online.
So would we go to the development committee and offer them first rights for 200 or 250 homes? Is that part of the potential plan?
Obviously, each one of them has an application in with us currently. They would only purchase what they need, obviously, but yeah, I would give them first rights to the equivalent of a certain amount of that capacity. I wouldn't want to give it all away, but certainly they'd have the first rights to anything they purchase.
Councilor Irwin.
And you mentioned a figure earlier, that was an estimate or a real number. Is it $5,000 per?
No, that wasn't a real number.
That was just a ceiling figure?
That was Carolyn math.
Okay.
Certainly, I can't do the math in my head, but let's say it's $4 million to desludge both, and we get 300 homes out of that. I don't know what the amount would be if I went through that, but what we would do is what the amount is under the development charges under sewer. That's what we'd ask them to upfront.
So is council in agreement to move forward with this project first off this year? Councilor Nelson.
I guess my biggest question is, can we afford it? I mean, I'd like to do it, but can we afford it?
Looking at the different options that have been put on the table tonight, obviously, financing it would be a definite yes. We have room in our ARL to take on additional debt. So that's definitely a yes. With our reserves, as we stated, we have we should have about 3.5 million including the transfer to reserves for 2024. If it is council's wish to deplete our sewer reserve with the sewer reserve and the front-ending contributions from the developers, we could make it work, absolutely.
So then my follow-up question is, what impact, if any, will it have on sewer rates in Park Hill?
That well, the sewer rates are not specific to Park Hill.
They're not going to be like a debenture or anything?
No,
And it could even be a combination of the three, how it's paid for,
correct.
from reserve,
Absolutely.
from development charges, and if
Yep.
there's a bit of borrowed money in there as well.
Absolutely.
So is council, I won't say app, because we are desludging lagoons, but yes, council in agreement to move forward with that project? Okay,
Okay, and which funding option would,
Do we want, yeah, that would be, do we want to contact the development committee first? Is that part of it?
I believe, yes, that we should contact them to see what they would consider. I think some would have an application.
Actually.
Yep.
I do have a question on that. I agree with what you're saying, Mr. Rapidoo. However, my question then would be, how would that impact the future development of the wastewater treatment plant if we do that now with the developers?
It would definitely have some impact. So there's no question about it.
Well, remember, these same developers aren't going to by the time we get the sewage treatment plant, I'm sure a lot of these developments are going to have wanted already to have developed. So the only way to tie them into putting money up for a sewage treatment plant is if we're doing it now. And now later on, if we were to do it 5-10 years from now, hopefully there's other ones in the wings that we can contact to do this. But I'm guessing the ones that are in the wings right now are not going to wait that 5-10 years to develop. They'll either be gone or have developed.
Yeah, I agree with you. So yeah, okay, fine.
Rather than lock it down, I like the idea of using those three options. And however, because we don't know what kind of money the development community would bring in. So to have the flexibility to use those three options and any combination of that, and I'm sure we get that in a report when we get down to it. But that would be my thought, to leave it a little more open-ended like that. So it doesn't
Okay. So what I'm hearing from council, assuming the budget's approved, we could contact our and work towards doing the desludging, which then would solidify the number. Excuse, I didn't mean to solidify the number. At the same time, talking to the development community, see what their contribution, and then we'd be able to come back to council with what the actual number is, who's willing to commit money up front, and then council can choose whether it's reserve, borrowing the money, or combination thereof.
Okay, Councillor Irwin.
I'm no expert on desludging, so how long would this take and how soon could we start? I'm asking that to see if we're bridging the work between 24 and 25, or will it all be 24?
Through your worship, RV Anderson Associates is to be working on the project, and we're expecting the final design deliverable and technical report in the next 2 weeks or so. So at that point, we'll have the final tender documents, and we'll be able to move pretty quickly on this one. So we could be, tendering a couple weeks after that, and then it's only a couple weeks worth of work, and we would leave the window open basically from the time we tender until the fall, just to get the best prices possible. So it would be completed in 2024.
Councillor Canals.
Jaden, where are they going to dispose of the sites? Is it going to go in farmers' fields or what?
Through the mayor, that's correct. Yeah, it would be land applied on farmers' fields.
So it'd have to coincide with the agricultural industry in terms of when the crops are there and taken off, right?
That's correct.
Anything more on the desludging? Because that's great that we've made a decision here tonight on that. The next one really is, as we've talked about, the William Street, or William Street, is the water line, the Else Craig Queen Street water line.
If I may, your worship, with that one, there's a few options as well, not as significant, unfortunately. I'm not sure what's in our development charge reserve, but it is, a lot of that is due to development. So there's, depending on how much we have in development charges, which isn't very much. I'm not getting a positive response. Okay. Sorry, I'll let you respond.
That's okay. So we're looking at the water now.
Yeah.
The
Queen
water
Street
and Queen
water
Street,
main.
Mill Street, yep.
We have at the end of 23, keep in mind this is unaudited, 189,000.
Okay.
So that'll get the equipment on the site.
Yeah. So I would suggest then really, we could again look at a combination or all borrowing the money. We could use our 198,000, but presumably the better way to go is to borrow for this project. We could use some of our water reserve potentially as well, or a combination.
So just before I go to councilors, I would, I'm not sure who all was there. I know Adrian, you were. When we did the water tower, we were going to do the Queen Street water main at the same time. And that was going to be a debt. That was going to be done through debt at that time. And then I believe the conversation was if we got the grant for Parkville Main Street, that goes ahead because we have to take a grant like that. And so, but at that time, when we first talked about it, was through debt to Main Street in Elsa Gray. From like that phase one, that was to Main Street that we talked about at that. Because at that time, there was not the need to go farther. But that was just the talk in the past. So it does look like financing this is the only way to go forward. 5 million? The first project is 5, first phase,
It's 4 million.
4 million for the first phase.
Yeah.
What's questions, comments? What's council's wish on this? Councilor Keel.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Carolyn, is there not some aggressive funding on this with this build homes faster, or is that not infrastructure related?
That's the housing enabling fund that we're proposing to apply for the William Street pump.
Councilor Canales.
Is that what came out in today's budget announcement? Because I thought there was going to be an increase in today's budget announcement.
There, we did hear about that budget increase already. I think Jaden referred to it earlier, that the fund went from 200 million to 800 million.
And it is the same money. It's just that
We'd already heard about it.
Jane had already heard about that. Councilor Irwin.
Well, your worship, it has to be done sometime. The longer we delay it, the more it's gonna cost. So we should start.
Councilor Daigle.
4 million this year, 5 million next year, at least 6 million. We're not gonna save by not doing it.
Okay. Other thoughts? What, pardon? Go ahead. You're saying to go forward? Councilor Canales?
Okay, I have to ask the treasurer again. I mean, can we afford it? I mean, do we want to do it? Absolutely. But can we afford it?
Through you, your worship, we can afford it if we finance it.
Okay, then.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Hodges.
Just a quick question through Mayor to the treasurer. What if we do finance it? Like, what are we talking? 5 years, 10 years? Like, how far out do we take it? Like, when you
That
finance?
would all depend which financial institution. We would obviously go with Infrastructure Ontario first. And I believe those are 10-year loans.
Michael, thank you.
Go ahead.
We agreed, the previous council agreed that had this project out here not gone, they were gonna finance that water line and get done. So we're not changing the process at all.
No, we're not. That's why I just wanted to make the history of that. If it's on basically the same debt as the tower, if we were with Infrastructure Ontario, that's why we were going to complete it. Let's get that project done. Let's finish what we started, because right now it's only halfway there.
Again, I have to ask the question, what impact will financing it have on water rates? Because I'm assuming it'll be significant.
The impact on the water rates would be the portion that would have to be repaid in that year. So you divide the 4 million divided by 4. Let's just not think about interest for
Yep.
for simplicity purposes. Yeah, that would be 400,000 per year would be the reimbursement of the loan.
Right, and we operate this as one system municipal wide, correct? Right.
And as I stated earlier, Watson and Associates already have all of this information in the study that they are currently doing for us. So that will be part of the presentation on May 1st, I believe. Yes.
Councilor Keel.
If I could just make a request, when Watson and Associates do their presentation, could they be here to do it versus over the screen?
Well,
I just find that it's pretty difficult to follow and the sound and view. I just thought of that.
Okay. All right, I think we'd request they're in person. Absolutely.
If he isn't able to attend our regular scheduled meeting, would council consider a special meeting if necessary? Okay, thank you.
Okay. No, and something like this, we want to have it in person. I agree. Absolutely. So I think everybody's spoken on it to move forward with this project. Yes, Councilor Irwin, yes? We're all nodding. Okay. Okay. Appreciate that council's dealing with 3 large projects here tonight. Jaden, do you have something you wanted to add here? No? Okay. Okay, sorry.
All right, so if we
Yeah.
now can go back to the PowerPoint presentation.
Yes.
Well, this all started under facilities.
Yep.
So we've discussed the 3 large infrastructure projects on the page that you see on screen. Any additional questions for any of those projects?
Any questions on this? Jaden?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I wanted to note the Victoria Street sewage pumping station design project. This project was slotted into our 2024 capital program from that long range capital forecast that we were looking at earlier. So it was put in the long range capital forecast quite some time ago. It will need to be upgraded eventually. I know talking with Aqua, who operates this facility, this isn't really one that is very urgent. So just, with the discussions we're having in the budget constraints around other capital projects, this is one that we could push back into the long range capital forecast. So just wanted to make those comments. It's not urgent. It did fall into 2024 based on the long range, but with all the other budget constraints, it is one that we could defer.
All right, I appreciate that. What's council's thoughts on that? I think when staff is telling us that.
And just question for Jaden, would you push it back a year, 2 years? Just where would you suggest we plot it?
I would just push it back probably the design to 2025, and the construction to 2026, and we'll continue to evaluate it with Aqua, and we'll just see how, with the development coming online, it may come up sooner, but we'll reevaluate it prior to the next budget cycle.
Okay, so is there any other questions on this? No other questions on this? Yep. Okay. To the first one, Greg, if you'll speak to that first one about the station renovation.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Staff was asked to explore a potential renovation to the Elsa Craig Fire Station. Since the original submission of our capital, we've revised that design figure down substantially. We think that we can get it done for $5,000.
So change that 50 to 5,000.
50 to 5.
I like the way this conversation is starting to go now. Yeah, no, and we had talked about that at committee and so, yeah. Any other questions on this? Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
And my question is to the CAO, and that is on the Parkville Community Center renovations for a startup grant, I believe it is, for
Daycare?
for daycare.
Yep.
The 600,000. Do we not erect a new structure for that money, for those kind of funds? I'm sure they build houses here for less than that.
No, I'm afraid not. When we're talking about building or renovating the existing community center to add washroom facilities for it, a new interior wall, and a few other upgrades inside. This would not be covering any of the costs associated with the daycare portion that will cover it under the grant. This is just for the portion to do with the community center. I know it's a lot of money. Unfortunately, that's the estimate. I wish it were less.
Just
But
so
the
I'm,
whole building, we know what whole buildings cost, and there's a lot, we get into the millions.
just so I'm clear, the 600,000, that's only the tip of the iceberg?
No, I wouldn't say that. There is a portion that we've applied for funding for. We're imminent in hearing our final approval, I'm told. And that grant would pay for the entire cost of renovating the daycare portion. Our portion is only for the portion that will be still used by the communities.
Then my next follow-up question that is for the mayor. Does the county not fund some of this daycare
Yeah,
opportunities?
and that's who this is going.
So the entire cost of daycare is what we've made application for to fund that portion, as well as monies for outdoor play equipment, startup funds, that sort of thing. So that is all under that grant. We've heard really good news so far that we should be receiving our final approval, but it hasn't happened quite yet. So I definitely recommend we keep this in here waiting for that approval if we receive it.
My final question, and then I'll move on, is how are we going to staff it? Is it going to be municipally run, or is it going to be private,
I don't know.
contracted out?
I don't know if council recalls when I brought it forward, it's a combined project with Pine Tree
Right.
Daycare. However, she is going to be running this particular location if we receive approval as a not-for-profit. So it would be a mutual project together, the municipality and Pine Tree.
Okay, thank you.
Who had Councillor Daigle, and then, or Stella, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
If we are unsuccessful with the grant, are we proceeding with the project? What is council's wish?
Go ahead.
I would recommend that we not proceed until we receive grant funding. We have made application. They love our application, but let's face it, there's a lot of demand for it. If we weren't successful this year, I'm almost positive we'd receive it the following year. So I would suggest that we delay it by a year. But I wouldn't suggest we do anything until we get approval for the grant. That would be my recommendation.
Councillor Daigle.
My question was just asked and answered.
Oh, okay. Okay, any other questions on this? Seeing none? That's it? Okay. Oh, yeah.
And I said all of that without my microphone. I will repeat the green highlighted project we've already discussed. There are 4 other projects for council consideration.
Great. Questions on those? I believe Vance spoke to the paving. I believe he spoke to some of that paving project for this year. The one is with Adelaide Metcalf that we're doing in partnership. Yeah. Yeah, but it's still in the budget as. I don't know if we approved it. We certainly talked about it. Councillor Knellison.
Just so I'm clear, the rolling road rehabilitation, is that specific to pavement as well? Asphalt application?
Through your worship, yes.
Okay, because that was a question for me. I didn't see any asphalt application anywhere in the budget, so that's where it is there. Okay.
Yes.
So is that entire 900,000 strictly for asphalt?
If I
Rolling.
may, 700,000 of it is for gravel 200,000 of it is for hardtop roads.
Vance, how much asphalt can we get? How many kilometers of asphalt can we apply for 200,000?
It would depend on the price of asphalt and so forth. I could come back. I mean, very anecdotally, you're not going to get a lot. That being said, the $200,000 in that rolling rehab, if a portion of that, we can use $100,000 of that for, we have some patchwork here and there around the municipality. We have a section of Bullock Road, which was asphalt at one point, and it's deteriorated to, it's really bad. So we would like to restore that. And then after that, the remaining we could use for the Wardell Drive upgrade.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Seeing, oh, Councillor Keel?
Thank you, Mayor Rob. The Wardell Drive upgrade to hardtop. Are we going to approve that tonight, or it has been? It has been approved? Okay, that's all I want to know.
And I think that's being done through Adelaide, correct? This is just our portion of it. And I do believe that Adelaide partnered with the county on getting pricing on hardtop.
Okay.
Councillor Daigle.
I'm not sure, but I think, Vance, you just said that part of that rolling road was going to go to Wardell, but we've already got that as a separate budget item.
I apologize for the confusion there.
Any other questions on this page? Seeing none? Oh, sorry, Councillor Daigle.
When I look at it, the Queen Street Water Main Phase 2. When we tender, if we get a decent price, are we going to look at adding for $300,000 to finish that project?
Is that the cost of putting that in? Or is that design?
Yeah.
Councillor Irwin.
The cost is another $4 million, I think.
It was, I knew that.
Councillor Diggle, total cost is $8 million. If it was $4,300,000, I would vote for it tonight. All right.
I do believe that because it's in town, it got more expensive quick, right? Because there's so much more hookups and everything else. And I do know that the county did not pave up to number 7. They stopped at the edge of Elsa Craig because we were going to be tearing it up. There is a timeline where they're going to have to pave it because it's hollowing out pretty bad there in places. So it's just something to think about. But yeah, that's just for the design of it. Any other questions on this? No other questions? All right.
Okay, so just to recap the discussion tonight, because that is the last slide. What we are looking at, the modifications that were done to the capital project listing are the following. We are going to add an infiltration study for Elsa Craig worth $100,000 under the administrative projects. And then under facilities, we are postponing the William Street sewage pumping station to 2025 with the understanding that we are still applying for the grant this year.
What was that amount again?
6.8 million.
Okay.
The Victoria Street sewage pumping station design is also being pushed back to 2025 at 150,000. And the Elsa Craig station renovation design was reduced from 50,000 to 5,000. So I've covered all of the council's wishes for the changes. That will be included in the minutes. So if we go ahead now, I guess the next step is looking at approving the budget or having a tax rate increase discussion at this time.
I would like to, before we, Vance, you mentioned something about a project that you had, capital project that you were thinking of withdrawing.
Yes, Your Worship, and thank you very kindly for reminding me that. if I have two projects that I would like to, one that I would like to remove and another I would like to defer until 2025. So the first one that I have on page 2, I draw your attention to a trackless attachment. It's a 14-foot mower. And it's here in the budget for $24,000. I got my wires crossed when I was doing the trackless attachments here, so that can be deleted from the budget. Deleted. We already have one. We have a mower already, and for some reason, when I was putting the budget together with trackless attachments, I had put this in here, and I thought it needed to be replaced, but we most recently just purchased one, so I apologize for having that in the budget. Your worship, members of council, and with your indulgence, if we could remove that. The second thing I'd like to remove is to defer. I draw your attention to page 4, and it's the second last item. It says culvert replacement, Cassidy Road. Okay, and the item in there is for $100,000, and the Narren Road Bridge is going to be out for this construction season. And I think it would be advisable to defer this project until 2025. And of course, the time of putting this into the budget, I didn't really have any knowledge of the Narren Road project going on. So for the sake of local traffic, it will create, let's just say, in my estimation, it's going to create some traffic issues. And for that reason, I would like to defer it to 2025.
Well, I have a question for you. So what do we have in there for culvert replacement in general in capital? That's the only thing we have, correct?
To the best of my knowledge, that's all we have in the budget.
So I guess my question is, what happens if a culvert you discover partway through the year is not good? So that would come from reserves instead? Like if we had to replace a culvert that we didn't know about earlier in the year or anything like that?
That could be determined at that time, but we certainly have room in our working capital reserve
Okay, so
that we can use for that.
So we don't need to worry about that. Okay. Fair enough.
And further to your question, your worship, absolutely. If we had something that was sort of if a culvert just through a storm system or something like that, and we had a culvert that washed out or was undermined and so forth, then I'd come back to council for that consideration at that time.
Thank you. Jaden.
Just to add through, your worship, we do have operating dollars for culvert maintenance and bridge maintenance or bridge repairs. And council may have noticed while we were going through the operating budget that we have increased the transfers to reserves for those accounts, just recognizing that, we do have a lot of a bit of a backlog of that bridge and culvert work that we do want to get working on. So putting that money away to save up.
Thank you. That was sort of the direction what I was meaning about that 100,000 is we still need it, but it's already in operating. So thank you. So Councillor Keo.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Vance, we wouldn't have any culverts that would be as expensive as that one that was on Fernhill that we shared with Middlesex Center, would we? We don't have any that are that big and that long. Elsewhere.
Through your worship, I believe we have somewhere in the vicinity of 40 culverts that are over 3 meters in diameter. So we do have some larger culverts that would fit into that category. And also, I do understand that project was rather dear in the total amount for it. Something to that effect. Yes. So, however, that being said, with major culvert work like that, at times, when there's other, like when ABCA has to be consulted and other permits have to be acquired and so forth, it can't, the prices do kind of go up. So,
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tenellison.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Ben, since you're in a giving mood, I'm going to ask you again about your generator. Now, I understand the need for the generator, and I understand the safety concerns. However, having considered this somewhat and discussed it with another colleague of mine, could we not get away with a Generac? It's probably like a larger Generac that's at half the cost that would do the same job. I mean, you're only pumping fuel.
Through your worship, the estimates that I received, I reached out to a local electrician, and the estimates that I received kind of like that 40,000, we can the estimate that I got, that was sort of a middle of the road estimate with respect to keeping the fuel pumps going. And if we were in a situation, say, where you've got a considerable storm event in the wintertime and so forth. And so that's the estimate that I'm forwarding to council, and just with respect to the health and safety factor is, and to keep our operation rolling, because really it's the only fueling station that we will have if all the power went out. So, that's my recommendation going forward.
Okay, I guess you're not relenting.
You're pretty passionate about this recommendation that you need to generate.
Well, your worship, members of the council, it's one of those situations where, and I do respect the past, and I do respect some of the like the PTO generated, like the powered generators and so forth. But you know, having had a chance to review that with staff, and we put together an SOP for using that. It brought to light some attention that was needed, and to sort of get through that, that's what I recommend.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Stella, go ahead.
There was one modification that I missed in my recap earlier. The Park Hill Lagoon desludging, that's slated at 3.3, based on the recent vote that we got as recently as half an hour before this meeting. And Jaden spoke to it. It was between 3.5 and 4. So I would recommend putting $4 million there instead of the 3.3. And for the funding, we would approach the development community, and following that, a report will be brought to council to further discuss the funding possibilities.
Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Keel.
Just for interest's sake, what was the time difference between the phone call half an hour before council in this 3.3? I just, for interest's sake, would like to know the rate that it's going up per day.
About $500,000 an hour.
Just check. Like, is that a year-old estimate?
Well,
Through your worship, we received an updated cost estimate on March 11th from RVA. And the number they had presented within that report was higher than the previous 3.3. And the discussion was just to kind of recap the reasons for those increases, so we'd have that information for council. So that is the latest cost estimate, and when we get the technical memo as this design wraps up, we'll bring a final number back to council.
and this is still based on the amount per dry ton they're going to.
Yeah, and sorry, I should have added one of the reasons there for that increase from the 3.3. The 3.3 was based on the survey that was completed, and they estimated a dredgeable amount, and that excluded some of the sludge accumulation along the perimeter of the lagoon cells, just because it sometimes, or it was the hydro survey, the company that did the sludge survey, thought that that would not be dredgeable. Speaking about it further with RV Anderson Associates, and they've undertaken some of these projects recently, they feel like these contractors do have the equipment to be able to remove that. So the volume went up to get the 100% sludge removal.
Okay,
Yeah, it's just that it's $200,000 difference.
Yep.
And 200's 200. It's not
Yep.
2,000. So it's just, it's easier to peg it down now
yeah,
than
I
it
agree.
is,
Agree.
coming back looking for it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I would ask Estelle, so where are we at right now? Because we have made some changes. We've subtracted, we've added, we added 100,000 and we took off 150,000 and 45,000 and 24,000, 100,000.
One moment, please.
Yep.
Just keep in mind that what we've removed was not tax funded. It was funded mostly by the working capital reserve.
None of it was tax funded?
No, but
Well, that burst my balloons. Okay,
I'm sorry.
okay. I didn't realize that none of it was. What about the 100,000 that we've added?
I would recommend that being funded through the sewer stormwater reserve.
All right. Okay.
So you still want the total?
Well, not if it doesn't affect the tax.
It does not.
Okay. Counselor Daigle and then Counselor Canals.
We've discussed the budget completely. And I don't think we fund any projects, taxable funding projects to take out to reduce our 4.85. And I'm looking maybe for support to put a motion forward that we approve the budget the way it is at 4.85, but reduce the 4.85 to 3% and take the difference, which is about $130,000 out of our tax stabilization fund reserve, so that our tax will increase is 3%, not 4.85.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Canelson, you had your hand up and then.
I did. I have a question. And my question is for Estelle, because as she indicated that those items that we removed did not come from the tax funded projects, but can some of these other projects then be transferred over and out of the tax funded? And I'm thinking of the asset management and the roads rehabilitation, or the roads needs study. Can they not come out of the working reserves then to replace those that we took out?
As those are not capital. Yeah, okay. They're not capital projects here are, although they are called capital projects, they are not part of our TCAs. They're not for assets. As these projects are not being capitalized at the end of the year, they're not coming out of our reserves. They are being tax funded because it's not something that we can amortize over the next coming years.
Okay.
So it's not an asset. It truly is an expenditure. And we have in our operating budget, you may remember transfer to capital.
Yep.
That is for these tax funded projects.
Okay, Counselor Irwin.
I'll second Counselor Daigle's motion.
Okay, thank you. And so that was to change it to a 3% tax increase and take the necessary amount
Out of this tax stabilization, which will be about 10% of that.
Any other discussion on that? 3% and then from the. Okay, all in favor of that? Carried. That's good.
Well done. Thank you.
So,
You finally did something right.
so we reduced 4.85.
Okay,
I got
any other business here? We have a couple of recommended motions that council directs staff to return before council with the results of the water wastewater rate study being conducted by Watson and Associates, and that council evaluate the water wastewater rates for 2024 in conjunction with receiving the consulting report. Also, another motion that council approve the implementation of an operator two. Oh, let's do the first one. Let's do the first one first, okay? We've already done it for it is for the water wastewater. Motion seconder by Councillor Irwin. All in favor? Okay,
If we approve this motion, does that mean that we're going to adhere to the Watson's recommendations, or we're just going to receive it and make a
no, the
decision?
council evaluate the water wastewater rates. Oh, the mover was Councillor Daigle, the second, Councillor Irwin. Okay, and it was all in favor. The other recommended motion, that council approve the implementation of an operator two position for public works pending the approval of a report to council after the evaluation of the implementation of the operator one position as per the organizational review. Councillor Irwin, Deputy Mayor Hodges, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Do we have any other business here? No, do we have, no, just a minute.
We did not cover the motion for the total 3% increase and the total funding that would bring. So one of the motions, Ashley, that we worked on this afternoon, one that speaks to the 4.85%. I have the number for the tax levy. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the number is 8,930,667.
667.
No, 66 and then
600. 667.
correct. And that would represent a 3% tax rate increase.
Okay, do we need another motion on that then? Because we did cover the motion as a 3%.
It's not. You had a mover and a seconder on it with that as the intent. I think that it's just appropriate to clarify that that's what it's already been approved at that.
Yeah, like we don't have to.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Any other business?
And the modifications to the capital projects will be detailed in the minutes of this meeting.
Any other business before we move to adjourn? Seeing none, move to adjourn. Councillor Keogh, Councillor Irwin. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone.